It's good stuff, and I really appreciate hearing that. And I guess I probably should kind of tell you about how I came to have interest and involvement in this area of soil quality and soil health and those types of things. Really, I think my interest started probably when I started working with some of our dairy producers back in the early 90s, because we're really transitioning and being successful looking at no-till. Local was really improving, the Rawson systems, and there's a number of things we're really making it easy, and covering more acres, reducing machinery costs, that type of thing. But it was a challenge for our livestock because of manure, because of being incorporated manure. That was a challenge. Okay, yeah, that's not fun. About the same time in the 90s, our crop producers, we were seeing a big adoption of deep tillage tools. There really was kind of a push to alleviate soil compaction and primarily deep compaction. We're getting a lot of questions on what is the best tool what tool should we use? What's the best deep tillage tool? And it made me comfortable because that really, I didn't think was the right question to be asking. The question was, what are the conditions we want to create? We start there, and then once we do that, it opens the discussion to consider our opportunities for reducing tillage intensity, which is really the big thing we're talking about. Reducing tillage intensity, which is going to lead into soil quality, soil building, soil organic matter, that type of thing, leading into soil compactions. Because from an engineering standpoint, we've known for a long time that if we reduce tillage intensity from mold-door plow to chisel plow to no-till, we can improve the carrying capacity of the soil at every step. So the soil is responsive. Now we do a tillage, we can place sensors below the soil surface, travel with traffic, and measure the pressure being transmitted down into deeper layers. So we've known about a lot of these things. The challenge is how do we get these things into a functional system that allow you to do everything you need to do? And that's really the challenge. And so there's that aspect of it. And then the greater challenge comes when we think about how can we continue to farm, produce crops, and at the same time build soil organic matter. That's quite a challenge. A few years ago, we just started penciling it out, looking, okay, where do all these components go? When we work in a crop, we got crop residue, we have manure, we got root growth, we got all these things. What do we hope to achieve if we want to really push it and do the best we can to improve soil organic matter? Well, it turns out that we thought, our best guess was, we could increase soil organic matter 1% in 10 years. So that's a long time. That takes patience. That takes another mindset. Because now you're farming for the future. And in Michigan, we've got fairly high population density in some areas, and that's not really. I always wonder sometimes, what is the longer term vision for some of these guys on the farm? Are they really farming for the future? Are they farming, for the next generation, or are they looking at, well, this is probably going to be the end of the farm family involvement, and we don't have time to think through things like that. So there's a lot of things that come into this, and so it's always been my interest in how can we make these happen? How can we farm with this goal to improve soil quality, improve soil organic matter, yet do what we need to do to get the job done on the farm and continue to produce crops and make money. We've looked at fence row soils in Michigan, and we see double-digit soil organic matter. And in the field right over there, we see 2% organic matter, which is what we are pretty typically deal with in Michigan. But how do we get there? How do we get there? That's kind of a challenge. At 1% a year, from 2 to 10, how do we get there? And continue to farm and produce crops. So it's a challenge. And I know that, our grain fields, we found that some amount of tillage is important because soils that are really good quality, have really good macropore, well, and if we're on tile drain land, then some of those contaminants, by contaminants I mean if they're leaving the field, nitrogen could be manure contaminants, if they're leaving the field, and maybe crop nutrients when they're in the root zone, but when they leave the field and go into the surface water, they're contaminants. So we found that we need some amount of tillage to break up those compacted or those macropores. We also are looking at tillage. I've got some trials on a few different farms with vertical tillage because of many things that Barry mentioned today. The need to sort of precondition the soil in the spring because our farmers are growing, and they're growing. Their equipment is big, their planters are wide, our fields are not real uniform. So we have many soil types, elevation changes, and for them to get going and move in the spring, they have uniform conditions across the field, they sense that that's an important thing. And vertical tillage is a way to kind of push that in the direction that they feel comfortable with. So pre-plant soil conditioning, this issue of the stacked corn varieties are these residues high yield corn residues breaking down to them? Many are saying no. I don't necessarily think it's probably due to some of the genetic traits, but the fact that we have really healthy plants going into winter with probably in pretty good shape compared to others. But still, we have a lot of residue, and when we plant beans the following year, really that's when the problem comes. Beans following corn, and trying to get through with the planting equipment there with some of that high residue. So we're looking at that, and also looking at it as some of these tools as rapid ways to incorporate multi-surface broadcast manure with primarily with our dairy guys. Is that effective? What does it do with the nitrogen? What does it do with the odor? And seeding cover crops. Is there a way we can move in and get cover crops seeded very quickly with this soil contact? So there's really a lot of things. And my struggle always has been, how do we do it? How do we balance all the things that we need to do in the environment with changing conditions and make that transition from wherever you're starting to where you want to be? How do you make that transition and make it in a way that's successful and allows you to keep going and not get discouraged? So I'm not here to tell you what to do. I guess really what I'm here to encourage you to do, if you're interested in really improving soil quality, is to develop an attitude of experimentation, because that's what it's going to take. Because you're going to have to reduce tillage intensity. Some of the no-till guys are probably there, but that's not enough. If you really want to get over the hump, you're going to need to add additional organic amendments, whether it's cover crops, whether it's manure, other sources. If you really want to build that level of organic matter. And that in itself can be just kind of getting some feedback on where am I with organic matter. That can be a challenge in itself, because if you're looking for a 1% change, maybe in 10 years, it's not very encouraging to go really push it for 5 years or 6 years or 7 years or silage fields, if there's any dairy you guys here, I mean, these take a beating because they're the equipment, a number of things. But for the 0-degree angle, you just fracture it. This is a 10-degree angle, so that's about as aggressive as it gets. But the way I like to think about this is creating an absorption bed. You know, so that if we apply manure, if we get rain on these fields, it goes down rather than over the surface and loosens and alleviates the shallow soil compaction. Because in my mind, it's really the deep compaction got a lot of press, but in my mind, it was the shallow compaction every year, you know, for some of these things. So I had some. I felt really good about this. And, you know, as I started to put some of these things together, I started thinking about some of the challenges I had in order to get manure moved around the counties from areas where we had too much with some of our large farms to areas where crop producers that really could have used it as a supplement and a source of nutrients. The challenge I had in getting manure, one of the challenges from crops or from livestock guys to crop guys, because the crop guys said, I don't want manure because there are not weeds everywhere. And we know that the weeds are spread by birds, they're spread by livestock, in another way through manure. You know, so I thought, well, you know, why is manure, the seed is spread by manure, why can't we spread cover crop seed with manure? There sort of seemed to be a bit of a bias against it. I think there was not a bias, but just maybe bad luck in mixing the seeds too close with manure in the past. But I thought I decided to try it, and we just started dumping seeds in the manure tank and using it through the airway, and we created these types of conditions. And I thought it was really a sort of an enhanced natural process where the seed was delivered into the manure. And if you kind of think about how that happens in the natural environment, either with manure or seed drops to the ground and the seed is carried to protected areas below residue down in the soil cracks by wind, by water, that type of thing. I really thought of this as sort of an enhanced natural process where the manure carries the seed down into these loose fractured areas. We really had some pretty good luck. And, you know, so we began working with a number of different cover crops. I think I really got interested in this when I started working with oilseed radish with some of our growers in the Saginaw Valley there that grow sugar beets. Usually their rotation would be corn, beets, wheat, and sugar beets, or some variety of that. Having problems with the sugar beet system, and so oilseed radish, certain varieties are suppressive of that. So we began working with that, and because beet harvest and beets in general are quite hard on soil in terms of intensity of traffic, intensity of tillage. Really wanted to start getting some manure back in those as a way to build soil quality. And really, I look at it as a soil reclamation process. You know, how can we get back to the natural productivity, productivity those soils had? So really, you know, as we start looking at cover crops, it really depends on what are your objectives. What do you want to do? A lot of our livestock guys want to capture nitrogen and cycle that in the process, in the following crops. But there's a lot of talk now about improving soil quality, tilt, crop yield, and I think there are some important parts of that. Some challenges as well. But you know, in terms of improving infiltration, these are all related to soil quality because the soil is functioning in a more successful way by improving infiltration, reducing runoff and erosion, affecting water quality. Oilseed radish, we found, is really a great cover crop for reducing weed pressure because it's got big weeds, they winter kill, and they just kind of lay flat on the ground, and they really work kind of nicely for by manure. What we're doing is we're putting seed directly in a tank, doing tillage up here, dropping the manure, and the seed blade is stored directly through the drop tubes using our bypass flow and the PTO pump here to keep the seed in suspension. And then, we basically, one of our windows of opportunity for manure application is wheat stubble. That's why a lot of wheat is growing in Michigan. So there's a window of opportunity for manure application. So we're putting manure on with cover crop seed here. And we're just doing that. We're not going to come back at all. This is what the crop looked like. Fracture loosened soil. We did very rapid infiltration. Swine manure here, and it's bringing seed down below the surface where it's more protected, so it's not laying on the surface like you just broadcast it and let it lay. We also wanted to compare drilling some other ways for comparison purposes. So we actually went and drilled some of our strips, and then we wanted to get contact with manure, so we just went right back over the top of those drilled strips with the airway and applied the manure that way, even though really it was sort of destroying the seed bed that we created with the drill. We wanted to see how robust were these systems, what would cover crops respond to. So we really, this is September 17th, and that was early August when we seeded those. This is September 17th on that 40-acre site. We got a number of strips here. This is our no-till drill, oilseed radish, wine slurry over the top after drilling. So really, we got a very nice stand there. Even though I was questioning why would we really destroy the seed bed. This is slurry seeded, so this was just right through the spreader. We didn't do anything. This is oats plus forage turnup, so we're interested in, well, what is the potential not only for cover crop, but for maybe late season grain use for some of these guys. So really, we really had a number of very successful cover crops. We did this for 2 years. You can see that it looks like it's in rows. Stop there. Okay. Yeah. So we did a few different. This is an yield. So we've got dry matter, tons per acre here. Sorry seeded oilseed radish. It gets away from me every time. Anyway, we got 2 to 3 tons. There wasn't really much difference between slurry seeding and drilling and then manure afterwards. So it worked. We're really pleased with it. And the grower was really quite happy as well. And manure cover crops are great companions. Here's slurry seeded daikon. The daikon is really the tillage radish. It's also called tillage radish. And so you can see here, the roots are about 12 inches long. Slurry seeded, 3.6 tons per acre. Where we had manure, it really likes nitrogen. It really likes the nutrients. 1.2. So we had 3 times greater yield where we had it. This is drilled. This is slurry seeded, more in contact with manure. This is drilled our forage turnips. And this is 2.8 tons up here. You see the size of the turnips there. So, we look at it as a great way to not only establish cover crops, get a good cover crop growing, but to trap nutrients and to add biomass to the field, and then how you want to work through that and use that seemed to be an opportunity that would depend on what your needs are for the cover crop and that type of thing. So we also have done quite a bit of work with trying to improve pasture and hay grounds. With the slurry seeding process, how can we better make use of manure nutrients, that thing. So we had a field here where we had that brome grass stand, and we came in and we slurry seeded red clover, and the stand here was pretty good. And this is a frost seeded red clover. It also had fair uptake. This is pretty typical of red clover frost seedings on our loam soils. So it's a good inexpensive way to make those improvements in the pasture hay ground. The problem is there was, from the cover crop standpoint and from the standpoint of wanting legumes to add nitrogen in the soil, it's somewhat successful. The challenge is how do you credit the nitrogen to these fields when the cover crops are not uniformly distributed. Well, they can't, or at least not very well, because you can have some that are really have nice areas, and then not too far away you've got basically none. So it's a real challenge. From a grazing standpoint, a lot of our pastures get overgrazed, and we were just looking for a way to make better use of nutrients with the aeration tillage process. We wanted to improve infiltration, fracture some of that shallow soil compaction, grazing cattle, compact soil. Soil sanding worked pretty well. We got a really nice stand. We also got a really good stand we no-till drilled right below here. We did some other treatments as well. But, so this was kind of our 2-year deals. This is year 1 and year 2. You see our no-till red clover, 6 tons 1 year, 5 tons another, forage dry matter, which was really good. Slurry seeding was a little bit below that, but not statistically different, lower, but not low enough to say that we have a lot of confidence that these are going to go over here. Frost seeding red clover was lower, statistically. If you look at these colors, but about 4 tons there. And then the brome grass alone, this was untreated. The brome grass alone was about 9.3. So we more than pretty much doubled our forage production, and also improved quality and a number of things. By doing some of these things. Fracturing soil, loosening the soil, improving infiltration, adding some nutrients, and particularly with cover crops. I wanted to show you this doesn't seem to start. Well, let me see. Try this again. Let's see if this starts. All right, there we go. Now, we're interested in this continuing this integration process of manure and cover crops in a number of ways. This is in a different area, and we wanted to get away, really, I think, in some ways, from the airway and that specific process of seeding. So we looked at a number of different things. Not only the slurry seeding, but again, coming through with the drill, actually drilling our cover crops. This is a challenge for our farmers because when this needs to be done, there is a lot of stuff. So we really need to look for some new options for this. And then behind it again, we just came through with 7,000 gallons per acre dairy slurry right over the top of that drilled area. A little faster area, the broadcast seeding, we just send it over the surface. 40-foot swath, probably 8 miles an hour, so we cover a lot of ground. And then just scratching the surface with this disc to just get a little seed soil contact there, and then again we came through behind and applied our manure on it that way. A lot of manure goes out this time of year, whether we're doing cover crops or not. So that's what it looks like. And this was in fall then. That was in early August. This was October 1st. On the left, on your left, we got a no-till drill with the airway over the top. Really nice stand of cereal rye. Right there, broadcasting the disc, and then the airway manure again. Not quite as precise, probably, the seeding method, but we still get a very nice stand. Broadcast disc with the manure had been applied into this. And then no-till drill with airway with manure again on the right-hand side there. But really pretty good stand. And again, these cover crops like manure, they like nitrogen. We really need to be finding ways to trap those nutrients, keep them in the root zone, keep them cycling, and find out, to what extent can we capture those benefits by reducing commercial fertilizer costs. So there's a no-till airway over there. So you can see there's some differences, but basically, I think just about every case we got really a pretty nice stand cover crops, and I think we're creating opportunities to select cover crops for specific reasons. So there's like nutrients aggressive properties, aggressive Pythium, Fusarium, some of the soil-borne fungal diseases that have economic importance to our growers. Forage rate and forage turnout, potential for late season grazing, of course, regular orchard grass, vegetable, some of these are either cover crops or have additional needs for grazing or other types of things, leaf clover. We think there's going to be some, in fact, we know there's some sensitivity to some crop. The one we have identified is crimson clover. It just doesn't like close contact with manure. So, if you're interested in working with some of these things, I think it's useful to kind of experiment. And I mentioned earlier that I think, one thing I'd like you to take away from this is the fact that if you want to really goose your farming system, I guess you might say, in the direction of building soil organic matter, you really need to think about developing an attitude of experimentation. Laying out some strips, not only just the whole field, do I like it or not like it, but side-by-side comparisons, so you can really start asking yourself, how are these systems functioning? And am I getting the things done that I need to do for the farming system, and is it compatible with improving soil quality, reducing tillage intensity, organic matter, all those types of things? Because it's a challenge. It is a challenge. This ammonia loss, we're interested in some of these types of tillage tools. This is ammonia loss in volume parts per million from 0 to 40. Over here is some of our weather data, so this is temperature and relative humidity. So if you look up here, I don't see it on here anyway, the top temperatures were about 80 degrees, and I'll focus not so much on the weather here. But we did a swine manure application, and we wanted to compare directly 3 different things. So we had a surface application here. We had the airway that I showed you a little earlier, and then we had an application with rapid incorporation. Here with this tool, I think, if I remember correctly, was like a combination tillage tool. I don't remember the exact name of it right now. But you can see here, we were quite surprised. We had surface application. We knew we would get really high losses here. The high losses occur real rapidly in the first few hours. So that's a challenge. We had a rapid incorporation here in our airway. We were quite surprised here. We actually had lower losses with the rapid incorporation than we did with our airway. So it's not always easy to predict what's happening with some of the ammonia losses with these tillage tools. But we do know that if you're applying manure in this way, any type of surface application, this is where the high losses are going to be in the first few hours. So we need to think about that, and that's where this rapid incorporation issue comes in. And I don't know if we can be quite rapid enough to beat that ammonia when it's this type of weather. But we work with some small grains, covers after corn silage, worked real well. Slurry seeded there, real dry, looked real good in both cases. And again, we're pretty comfortable with our ability to not only seed these things but work well. This is one other work we did where we had actually, where we were trying to see if we could use manure as a nitrogen source in a winter wheat drought. You can see here we've just gone through and with fairly light angle on our airway, and really without much damage at all to the wheat. And we got about equivalent yields. I think it was slightly less than this, but I'm not sure if our nitrogen rates really matched up. It's a little bit harder to know sometimes. But I think the fact is that there's really a lot of flexibility. I think it's some of the opportunities you may have, and particularly if you've got livestock, other sorts of manure, it gives you some opportunities, I think, to really make some progress in building soil quality. This is one of our growers up in Michigan. He's a good grower. There's a lot of on-farm experimentation. I work with him in a number of ways. This is our oilseed radish crop following wheat. He likes to think in terms of trying to use cover crops to extend the rotation, to get some of the rotation benefits that you would get. For instance, might be able to kind of get away from the corn drag by inserting a cover crop, using that to extend the rotation. But in this case, this was no manure in this area. This is our 4,000 gallons of swine manure. He's one of our guys that's put in a large finishing unit, not because he really likes hogs, but because he wants hog manure for his cropping program, because he wants to build soil quality. He wanted access to manure. So, you know, we've got a lot of folks doing a lot of different things out there, and it's interesting, and it's kind of fun to see it. But the way it is, you can really see that, you know, some of these cover crops really go after the nitrogen and really do a good job of picking it up. So the challenge is of course, trying to carry that through the following crop and decide to what extent we cut back our manure application next year. So the bottom line, I guess, is, you know, manure and cover crops are great companions, and they're good ways to really supplement an opportunity or efforts to build soil quality. But again, I think that the key really is reducing tillage intensity. I think that's really the pivotal point, because if intensively tilling the soil, you saw a few of the slides where a lot of the organic matter is being burned off relatively quickly. And one thing about efforts to improve soil quality and build organic matter, it takes a long time to build it, but it doesn't take long at all to burn it off. So it takes effort, it takes an attitude of experimentation, and it takes patience and kind of a belief that you're going to see a lot of positive change over time. So that's really all I wanted to talk about here.